Hi, everyone. Welcome to Clarity's webinar that happens the first Wednesday of each month. Michelle Anton here, Communications Director for Clarity, and we have an interesting presentation with a very special guest who Chris Neville will be introducing. Our host is Chris Neville, Vice President of Product Development for Clarity. And if you're new to Clarity, it's a cutting-edge bioenergetic wellness company. Chris Neville has more than 25 years experience developing products, and he's the mastermind behind Clarity's flagship nutritional drink called CALIBR8 and CALIBR8 Kids. Chris's company, Biophotonics Innovations, is involved with ongoing research and product development that's focused on the latest scientific findings for longevity, along with supporting the emergence of exotic energy technologies. Hey, Chris, I can't wait for you to give us this wonderful presentation, and I'm just going to turn the webinar over to you.
Thanks, Michelle, and welcome everybody. It's always great to join you on the call, and for those of you joining for the first time, this evening's call is going to be a little bit different, or perhaps even today's call, depending on what part of the world you're in. You know, in as much as what we're wanting to do is to highlight a couple of our enthusiasts that are using the products, promoting the products, and get a little bit of an insight on why they're excited about what we have to share at Clarity. But more importantly, I'd like to introduce you to our next panelist, our next guest on our call, and that is Cheryl Geary. She's actually coming all the way from Canada. Her background is involved with as a registered aromatherapist and massage practitioner, and she integrates diet and lifestyle into her practice, but also she's been very, very passionate about health, not only teaching yoga previously, but also she's worked in the natural health industry over the 10 years with one of the top manufacturers of nutritional supplements there in Canada. So Cheryl, welcome to the call.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, Cheryl, what I'd like to do is to maybe just open the call to discussing a few things as far as what is it about, you know, the supplement industry that you see that when we consider CALIBR8 as a relatively new entrant into the field of nutritional supplements. As you know, our science is based on nutrigenomics. Can you maybe share a little bit more about your background in the supplement industry? I think people would be interested just to hear a little more about your focus there.
You know, the thing is with selling a product is always securing good raw materials and having a formula that is synergistically well put together in the sense of doing what it needs to. And the biggest thing is always having bioavailability, and that means how well we can absorb it. So that's always key in manufacturing. And when I stumbled across CALIBR8, I didn't realize how much of all of that it had. And of course, using it over a period of 3 months, I've seen that. And that's why I've been very excited to let people know about this, because just the way it's been put together synergistically, the raw materials have been carefully picked out. But the biggest thing is always in how it's been made to be more bioavailable in the sense of the Q set, so that, you know, that is key. And I think, again, the synergy is amazing.
Well, that leads me straight into a really important, we'd put that probably under our banner of quality assurance. As you know, with the product, it's vegan, non-GMOs, pesticide, chemical-free, dairy-free, gluten-free. So it's really been not so much a labor of love, but it's a really important kind of philosophy of what we look towards as we develop products at Clarity. And you mentioned about bioavailability. Now, it may be a little bit new for some people, depending on how versed they are in using or consuming supplements, but there seems to be, I perceive it to be 3 steps where people are maybe concerned about their health or their well-being, and they may be a little confused because, you know, there's conflicting data out there. From an ingredient selection, you know, that what goes on the label is kind of a gray area. Can you maybe share a little bit about what you mean by bioavailability and some information that relates to the labeling?
So first of all, there are a number of companies out there that do tend to put together products or formulas, and what is on the label isn't always necessarily in the product, which is unfortunate. So again, yes, good testing is important. And again, you know, that company, if it's known for its integrity, you wouldn't question it. But, you know, believe it or not, there are a lot of companies that are selling products that aren't all that they're made out to be. And then again, coming back to bioavailability, it's all, sometimes in the case of most raw materials, it's the size of the actual compound itself, and that we're not able to absorb, or that one compound's needed with another in order to absorb. So this formula with the CALIBR8 has been carefully thought out, but again, the QC technology that's applied is really guaranteeing that people are going to absorb that product to its full capacity. So I hope I've answered that.
Yeah, absolutely. And because it's fascinating, you know, to me when, you know, you think of a, maybe an ingredient that becomes a bit of a hot trend, you know, once upon a time, going back even a couple of decades with the emergence of, you know, juices and berries and then super juices and other ingredients where they become kind of like the flavor of the month. And then they lean on research that this berry is known for all of these wonderful health benefits. But coming back to the bioavailability and the studies, it's been really important to make sure that what is being referred to in the literature and the research that has identified some of the compounds or the nutrients benefits in the body is actually contained at that level or more in the body, rather than just putting the word or the ingredient on the label. And so that the quantity or the amount of ingredient is also really critically important there. Can you share a little bit about some of what when you're marketing products, certainly through health food store channels, and some of the competition that's out there and how they try to position their product, knowing full well that they're leaning on perhaps the trend of an ingredient rather than actually having the clinical benefit there. Can you maybe comment about that, please, Cheryl?
Absolutely, you're right there, Chris. It does become a flavor of the day, or perhaps a trend. So you'll get many companies bringing out that particular, let it be a juice, or say in the case of curcumin now, there might be only a 10% of the ingredient in there, not always necessarily the active part of it. And then it's how it's labeled is quite dressed up, which is rather sad, because I've seen many a customer come in using a product that's absolutely nothing for them. So again, they've, you know, that particular company has jumped on the bandwagon and gone with a raw material that isn't always necessarily the best or active. And then again, combining it synergistically or making it available, it is a costly process to make it more bioavailable. So, and some companies don't want to do that. And that's why, again, it's in that sort of middle range of affordability. And again, it's what you get what you pay for. So,
well, that's a great thing that you just mentioned there, because getting what you pay for is sometimes a really tricky thing for people to decipher from the calls. Not to make everybody an expert, but probably more mindful about some of the challenges with developing a product in terms of being able to make it not only bioavailable and beneficial, but also ensuring that the quality is there. From not just the labeling and the read and the storyline, but truly what it means at the clinical level of benefit. And this is where having a couple of very, very important ingredients that are in the formulation that are actually patented. Can you explain a little bit about what your understanding is with an ingredient that may be patented?
So yes, and you see a few of them out on the market, and normally, you know, there's a lot of ownership around that. And normally when a company has that, they don't share it with everybody. They'll choose who they're going to go with. So when you have a patented ingredient, it's quite a privilege actually. And so yes, a lot of clinical trials have been or have gone into that patenting. And obviously the evidence and all of the trials speak for themselves. And normally that's something you can more normally trust, is when the moment it's trademarked or patented, absolutely, like I said, it's more trusted in the sense of the extreme that it's gone to prove that it's what it says it is.
Absolutely, and that's where in the formulation of having, well, there's over 3 ingredients that are actually in the formula alone that have got a patent or multiple patents, and those patents can be not just about the ingredient itself and how it's been grown, harvested, or even isolated some of the nutrients. It's sometimes how it's transported into the body, like microencapsulation, those kinds of things. What it truly means is that there is a way that the vendor, the producer of the ingredient is concerned, because you might have, as an example, as Cheryl mentioned there, the turmeric and the curcuminoids from the turmeric. It's in the literature, there's evidence that indicates that there's antiviral, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory benefits, and some of the markers that show up there with the research is what is leaned on from a feature or function benefit that is presented to the market from a marketing point of view. But what is also important from the actual benefit is that they've been able to standardize the curcuminoids, which are the active compounds that Cheryl mentioned in the turmeric. Now, when you can standardize it, you don't have a hit and miss, because you think of an apple and you pick an apple today from a tree, it's going to be a little different in 2 days' time, or it's going to be different from an apple on the exact same tree picked a couple of days later. And these variances that occur naturally in nature mean that you can have maybe a high level of the known beneficial or active ingredient in the fruit, vegetable, or the nutritional supplement. But the important thing about it is that what we look for is that we need to be able to ensure some level of availability or predictability in terms of benefit. And by being able to have a standardized active level of this known nutrient, like the curcuminoids we mentioned, that's a highly desirable situation in a formula. And that's one of the reasons why we have identified not just the turmeric or the curcuminoids to put on the label, but also to ensure that there is a benefit, and that benefit is backed up by the patent as well. And so all of these additional considerations in a formula make it not only unique, but also truly valuable when it comes down to your health and also really your budget. You know, at the end of the day, there's a certain amount that we invest in our health and well-being from a prevention stage, but having peace of mind that the ingredients are what they are meant to be, and that the science is there that support those ingredients in terms of their activity level, and also the purity and the potency. Many companies look at only what goes on the label, and then it's really there's sometimes more smoke and mirrors that go into a formulation based on what we think is in the label because of a word, rather than recognizing that there are maybe 100 different vendors that produce an ingredient that we would be able to put on the label as a turmeric or the curcuminoids, but it's not necessarily always active. And so this is why it's so important to be aware of that as a consideration in selecting a nutritional supplement with bioactivity. Can you maybe share a little bit about the bioactivity side of the supplement industry, Cheryl? Why that's becoming increasingly so much more important? I think it's got a lot to do with consumer awareness, but can you, from marketing these products through these channels, share a little bit about what that means for the consumer?
Sure, and again, it's like a delivery system. So the moment you add a little more to a formula where that it guarantees that that person's going to absorb it more, sometimes it's called something like softening the tension, where the cells are able to receive it better. In the case of a probiotic, sometimes you have to enteric-coat it, so it's not ruined by the damage by the gastric juices. So the moment you add another step in, it adds an expense to that. but then it is guaranteeing that it's going to be reached, through the bloodstream into the cells without being damaged to the body. So, that's my understanding of it. And again, most companies will skip that process because it adds an extra expense. And again, we're coming back to, if that's something you want, you're going to pay for it. But at the end of the day, too, a lot of people have what's called compromised systems, and they're not able to absorb nutrients. And so, there are a number of people, quite a high amount of population out there. Stress will do that in itself. And so most people do need that help in order guaranteeing that those nutrients are getting in at cellular level. And so again, that's something you want to look for. And whether you do or don't know it, almost assume that you're going to be compromised in some way if you're leading a stressful lifestyle or having any toxins interfering with your intake of your supplemental regime.
Absolutely, and that's why with looking at my little catchphrase is stress is sometimes not what you eat, but what's eating you, and how that really plays out as a dampening of the body's ability to not only function properly, but ultimately also absorb nutrients as well. And that's highly researched. When we're looking at Calibrate as a product and being able to combine multiple pathways as our approach towards the understanding of primary antioxidants, that they're the antioxidants that the body makes as opposed to secondary antioxidants. These are the antioxidants that we typically get from our diet, from our fruits and vegetables and what's contained in our diet. So thinking in terms of the primary antioxidant and the secondary antioxidant story, but understanding that the body can and does produce its own primary antioxidants and detoxification enzymes, what do you consider to be one of the things that, or however number of the things that was really important as decision making, why you decided to, you've got a lot of knowledge about what to go and take. What was it that drew you to the Calibrate and Clarity?
To be honest, Chris, all of the ingredients really good. And of course, the first ingredient being the from the broccoli sprouts, the sulforaphane, is key today because we're all subjected to a lot of toxins in our environment. We're all subjected to the xenoestrogen, the mimicking estrogens in our environment. So again, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're toxic, it's going to interfere with you taking good nutrients or good antioxidants. So, the primary thing there is the first ingredient is making sure we are detoxing, freeing up our cells to receive, primary antioxidants or nutrients. So that was, eye-opening for me. There is a product on the market similar to what we have in there, and it's very costly, and very few people come across that product until it's too late. Most times I see people in the stores buying that product because they've already got cancer, and then invariably they've got to really take high doses, and it's extremely costly. So when you look at it as a preventative measure and synergizing it with the other antioxidants, focusing on detoxing and then supporting the body, it just blew me away. I found it really amazing and was very excited to have stumbled across it.
Well, that's fabulous, and definitely there are other I consider to be good, and there's a couple of great products that are in the market, no question about that. I certainly feel that Calibrate stands shoulder to shoulder with those products in terms of its overall benefit as well. Now, with the benefits and the usage of the product, I know, can you maybe share a little bit about your experience? And I know you've got a couple of family members or that have also been using the product.
Yes, so for sure, for me, always, if I can find a product that's going to offer me preventative care and improve my current state of health, and as we age, of course, that is on a decline. So from my own findings, just knowing that I am protecting my body against the toxic environment and giving it the nutrients needed to stay healthy. Again, what I loved is the whole unique way we each have our own gene expression, and this is a very unique formula in way it works with us individually. And then, of course, feeling good the way I did, noticing decrease in inflammation and just all over a sense of wellness, almost a peace within. It sounds awful, but it's like this peaceful feeling that comes across. I guess that peaceful feeling you get when you're happy. And I thought, well, I can't be feeling this way alone. I'm going to have to share this with my family, and noticing just sharing it with family and them starting to take it, noticing a decrease in inflammation and just a natural level of energy. Sometimes we'll take a supplement where we would take that and feel a spike of energy. Sometimes that's a false energy, but this is a natural energy, almost like a natural endurance we may have once had. So yes, noticing all over just anti-inflammatory, energy-wise, just a real sense of feeling well again.
Great. And I know that from our conversation just a little while back, you mentioned about your own physician, your own doctor, GP, that was, quite taken by what you had to share about it and decided to try it. So I know that we don't typically lean on that, but I was just interested in maybe sharing that, what actually happened there, if you could share that.
Well, I'm fortunate to have a GP or MD that's quite open to alternate therapies out there, or alternate measures other than what is typically offered. And but again, she just wanted to do this for her own self, and decided to do that, and started feeling the wellness, and her own children started the CALIBR8 for kids. And she's been feeling so good that she's been starting to make her patients aware of what the CALIBR8 is and what it does. And so just, I guess she's quite forward in how she'd like to help people and progress using both modalities.
Well, I think that's one of the exciting things that are definitely emerging right now globally, and that is that many practitioners, and I refer to them as holistic or practitioners, or even integrative medicine, that includes not only the treatment but also addressing the true causes. And I think more and more health practitioners are recognizing that when we can support the body from a preventative measure and address the cause of some of the challenges that people face, then we're truly working with the body rather than trying to only deal with signs and symptoms. And I think that's it may be an emerging trend, but I just think it's a much more wholesome way to work with patients and clients, and that's certainly very, very inspiring to hear as well. Cheryl, is there anything else that you'd just like to add just before we wrap this up? I know it's been, for me, great to hear your comments about the different choices that people may have, and what makes this bag, this CALIBR8, our flagship product, something that's not only unique but also beneficial, rather than trying to look at maybe multiple products. It's all there in one formula. Can you maybe comment just to wrap up?
Sure. And basically coming back to preventative care, and it's just getting the mindset to not waiting till the house is on fire, but to keep it contained and waiting for it to burn down. And it's hard to swing people onto that, because they invariably have to have the wake-up call of being ill first. But it's just the slow coaching and making aware, and again, just living the lifestyle and showing them what it is that you want to achieve. It's not always easy, but I think that the newer generation now are starting to ask more questions and perhaps look at a little bit more preventative care. But it's really us spreading that good word.
Absolutely. And I've also found that the healthy cell model, just looking at that there's not 1,000 diseases that people are confused by in terms of names and I guess are ways to approach a treatment. So because we're not involved with treatment, but when we recognize that there's not 1,000 diseases, there's actually really one, and that's a malfunctioning cell. And that malfunctioning cell has two causes. There's a deficiency, like a micro and macronutrient, or even antioxidant defense, or there's toxicity. And so if there's a deficiency and or toxicity, this really lays the foundation for oxidative stress and inflammation, which leads to many of the chronic degenerative diseases that we see today. So when we can look at this healthy cell model and target these different pathways that really lead to the causes, then we've got ourselves a really powerful ally when it comes to getting well and staying well, because we're not, we're demystifying a process. It's very, very important to work with your healthcare practitioner, of course, but I think it's also important to recognize that this is your body, and if we recognize that there are certain things that happen on a daily basis, and we can work with how the body responds to life and life's inputs, then we're really starting to become more self-aware and able to direct our health in a way that brings us to the greatest level of, vitality and sense of well-being. And as Cheryl mentioned a little earlier, just sometimes this feeling of peace or happiness that emerges, and that's a really common comment that many people actually make. It's not just about energy as being the measure of health, but also sometimes this quiet sense of well-being. And I think that that's hugely important as well. Cheryl, it's been an absolute pleasure just hearing what you've got to share. And I know being such a strong health advocate and being able to give people some insight into getting well and staying well, it's always great to hear from people who have got years of experience, and with over 25 years experience in the health supplement industry, and also working with people in yoga and your own massage and healing practice there. It's nice to hear from your perspective of what you enjoy about Clarity, but more importantly about Calibrate, our flagship product. So thank you very much for what you've had to just share with some of our listeners this evening.
My pleasure. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for a wonderful product.
My pleasure.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, and good evening.